An old man sits by a hospital bed and reads to a woman who doesn't know his name. He does it every day, has been doing it for years, and somewhere inside the story, if he gets far enough, if she holds on long enough, she wakes up, just for a moment, just enough to know him. And then it's gone again. That image landed in theaters on June 25th, 2004, and a certain percentage of the population has never fully recovered. The Notebook, directed by Nick Cassavetes and based on Nicholas Sparks's debut novel, follows Noah Calhoun and Allie Hamilton, a lumber mill worker and a wealthy heiress, 1940s South Carolina, doomed by a class gap, and eventually reunited by sheer stubbornness. Ryan Gosling played Noah with the intensity of a man who had genuinely moved to South Carolina and built furniture to prepare. Rachel McAdams played Allie with the ferocity of someone who sobbed through the script the night before her audition and showed up the next morning absolutely certain this was hers. James Garner and Gina Rowlands held the present-day frame together in a nursing home with a quiet authority that made the last 15 minutes genuinely hard to sit through. Nick Cassavetes directed all of it, and his mother is Gina Rowlands, which we'll get to. Made for $29 million, The Notebook opened to mixed reviews, and was not the film anyone was talking about that weekend. A Michael Moore documentary outgrossed it on its own opening day. And then a 4-month-old social network called Facebook decided otherwise. Today we're counting down 15 facts you didn't know about The Notebook. 2 lead actors who actively despised each other during production. A director who raised birds by a lake because his studio said the scene couldn't be done. The most quoted line in the film, improvised by an actor who thought it was terrible. And a family story hidden inside the movie that took 20 years and a diagnosis to fully understand. Hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the films that shaped us. Share this with someone who has seen The Notebook at least 4 times and has no intention of apologizing for it. Let's get into the countdown with number 15. Number 15, Nicholas Sparks was a pharmaceutical salesman on his last attempt. The year was 1994. Nicholas Sparks was 28, selling pharmaceuticals, recently transferred to a new city, helping his wife raise 2 young children. He had already written 2 novels that went nowhere. He gave himself one more attempt. Write a third, and if nothing came of it, stop. He wrote in the evenings while the children slept for 6 months. What he was writing came from a visit he and his then-wife Kathy had made to her grandparents the day after their wedding. Still in wedding clothes, restaging the ceremony because her grandparents were too frail to attend. Over 60 years together. A grandfather who had kept writing letters when her parents separated them as teenagers. A grandfather who, as her memory began to fail, found a way to bring her back every day. Sparks said later that the thing that stayed with him wasn't even the love story. It was the way the old man watched her, the way his eyes lit up when she was in the room. That was what he sat down to write. He finished the manuscript and sent it cold to a literary agent named Teresa Park. She pulled it from the slush pile, the stack of unsolicited manuscripts most agencies never read, and offered to represent him. Park sold it to Time Warner Book Group for a $1 million advance. The book hit the New York Times bestseller list its first week. The man who wrote the most famous story about refusing to give up was 3 attempts and out of chances, writing at midnight in a house with young children asleep down the hall. That's not the backstory anyone pictures when they're crying at the ending. Number 14, the final choice for Allie, came down to Rachel McAdams and Britney Spears. New Line Cinema ordered a nationwide search for the right actress. The list of women who auditioned reads like a 2002 trade page. Kate Beckinsale, Scarlett Johansson, Claire Danes, Amy Adams, Mandy Moore, Ashley Judd, Reese Witherspoon, Kate Bosworth, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Jessica Biel wanted the role badly enough to audition while shooting the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. From her trailer, in full makeup from the set, she didn't get it. Neither did any of the others. It came down to 2 people, Rachel McAdams and Britney Spears. Here's where it gets strange. Ryan Gosling and Justin Timberlake were on the Mickey Mouse Club together in the early 1990s, and close enough that when Gosling's mother had to stay in Canada, Timberlake's mother became Gosling's legal guardian for the duration of filming. They lived in the same house. Britney Spears was also a Mickey Mouse Club cast member, and she and Timberlake dated for years after the show ended. So, the final 2 candidates to play opposite Gosling were McAdams, and the former girlfriend of the boy whose family had taken Gosling in when he was a teenager. McAdams had received the script the night before her audition, sobbed through it, and showed up barely having slept. She read opposite Gosling with something the director recognized immediately. When asked about casting her, Cassavetes said it was simply apparent from the moment she walked in. The Notebook opened 2 months after Mean Girls. McAdams appeared in both, the cruelest girl in high school and the most love-struck girl in South Carolina, same summer. Number 13, the director cast Ryan Gosling. Because he wasn't handsome. Cassavetes had a specific theory about why famous leading men couldn't play Noah. He'd watched enough movies to know that once an audience has seen an actor fall in love 10 times on screen, the 11th time doesn't land the same way. You stop believing it. You start watching the performance. So, when New Line expected him to cast someone recognizable, he went the other direction. He invited Gosling, 22, barely known outside Canada, to his house. When Gosling arrived, Cassavetes was standing in the backyard. His opening, "I want you to play this role because you're not like the other young actors out there in Hollywood. You're not handsome, you're not cool, you're just a regular guy who looks a bit nuts." Gosling's immediate reaction to himself. He was crazy. He couldn't be more wrong for this movie. He was right to be confused and wrong about the outcome. He moved to Charleston 2 months before filming. Every morning, he rode the Ashley River. Every afternoon, he apprenticed with a local cabinet maker. The Adirondack chairs outside Noah's house in the film, he made those. The dining room table in the reunion scene, he built that too. McAdams was equally committed. Months in Charleston, dialect coaching, ballet and etiquette classes, attending actual debutante weddings. The studio thought Cassavetes was out of his mind. The man they had rejected became, with this specific film, the defining romantic lead of his generation. Number 12. Ryan Gosling wanted to burn the house down. Cassavetes encouraged his actors to bring ideas, push the material, find things the script hadn't found. With Gosling, this produced some of the film's best moments, and one recurring conversation that Cassavetes still brings up as the clearest example of what working with him was like. Gosling became convinced that Noah should set fire to the house he'd spent years rebuilding, not as a metaphor, actual fire. He felt it would express Noah's emotional state, destruction before renewal. He kept bringing it back. Cassavetes' response, recalled in a VH1 interview, was consistent. He had no idea what that meant. Gosling's response was equally consistent. "Cleansing my fire. The house did not burn." What the friction produced instead was the film's most important unscripted moment. At the climax, Noah confronting Allie about her engagement, demanding she choose, Gosling improvised. "What do you want? What do you want?" Cassavetes later described it as one of the most iconic things in the film that wasn't in the script. The director said yes immediately and let him keep going. The same intensity that wanted to burn a house down is the intensity that found the line the whole film was waiting for. The director said no to the fire. He said yes to the question. That's why one is in the movie and one isn't. At number 11, Netflix accidentally aired a version that cut out the ending. In February 2019, Netflix UK began streaming The Notebook. Fans queued it up, watched Noah and Allie's whole story play out. The carnival, the letters, the house, the rain, the reunion, the years of shared life. And then, right at the moment the film delivers its gut punch, the scene where the nurse finds them the next morning, holding hands, having passed in the night, it wasn't there. The film just faded out. Ambiguous, almost peaceful, without the ending. Viewers hit social media immediately. Outrage ranged from confused to furious, with the specific quality of anger reserved for something considered sacred being tampered with. Netflix UK released a statement. They had not edited the film. An alternative version had been supplied to them and uploaded in error. They swapped in the original cut as quickly as they could. Here's what makes it stranger. That alternate ending wasn't made for Netflix. It exists, properly produced, not a rough cut. Apparently for markets where showing the couple's final scene on screen violates local censorship rules. Somewhere in the distribution chain, a version had been sitting in a vault for years that lets the story breathe, but cuts the last scene entirely. Nobody outside the studio was supposed to know it existed. The most devastating scene in the film, the one that makes everything before it matter, vanished from a major streaming platform in 2019, and the official explanation was a filing error. Number 10. The studio said the bird scene was impossible. The director raised his own birds. The lake scene at Cypress Gardens in Monk's Corner, South Carolina, Gosling rowing McAdams through a flock of white birds on still water. Everything impossibly beautiful. Almost wasn't in the film. New Line reviewed the scene in the script and told Cassavetes it couldn't be done. Every animal wrangler they'd consulted said the same thing. The birds weren't trained and couldn't be made to stay. The studio's position was to remove the scene entirely. Cassavetes did not remove the scene. He and a producer bought a livestock trailer, found some animal handlers, purchased a batch of hatchlings, and drove out to the lake. Every single day for months before shooting, they marched the birds to the water's edge and fed them there. By the time cameras arrived, the birds were fully grown and had been fed at that lake every day of their lives. When the studio came to see the scene, the birds walked to the water behind the handler and floated out on cue like they owned the place. There's one detail nobody mentions. The shoot had to happen in January specifically, so the alligators native to Cypress Gardens would be hibernating and not in the water with the actors. The most dreamlike image in the film was produced by several months of daily bird feeding, one livestock trailer, and a January scheduling window to avoid alligators. Number 9. Ryan Gosling tried to get Rachel McAdams replaced mid-production. The cast was set, cameras were rolling, and somewhere in the middle of filming what would become one of cinema's great love stories, Gosling, standing in front of 150 crew members, turned to Cassavetes and asked him to remove McAdams from the set. In a 2014 VH1 interview, Cassavetes recalled Gosling pulling him aside and saying he needed another actress to read off camera with him, not McAdams. He wasn't getting anything from her. He couldn't do it. Cassavetes didn't fire her. He pulled both actors off set, put them in a room with a producer, and walked out. They screamed at each other. He went outside, waited, and when everyone came back out, they said they were ready to keep going. Cassavetes later said he thought Gosling respected McAdams for standing her ground, and she was relieved to get it into the open. The rest of production wasn't smooth, but it was smoother. Gosling described it separately as one of the stranger experiences of his career, making a love story without being able to stand your co-star in any way. They began dating after filming wrapped. They dated for 2 years. At the 2005 MTV Movie Awards, they won Best Kiss, walked on stage, and instead of giving a speech, Gosling dipped McAdams and kissed her in front of the crowd. The audience reaction was not a polite response. It was the specific noise people make when reality exceeds what they had hoped for. Every Best Kiss winner at the MTV Movie Awards has kissed on stage to accept the award ever since. Cassavetes, for the record, later told Entertainment Weekly he regretted telling the original story and apologized to both of them. Real quick, who's your favorite character in The Notebook? Tell us in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more. All right, back in. Number 8. The real couple used a photo album, not a notebook. The real couple who inspired The Notebook. Nicholas Sparks' then-wife, Kathy's grandparents, together for more than 60 years, didn't use a notebook. The grandfather walked his wife through a photo album. He would sit with her, open it, point to pictures, and tell her who the people were and what they had meant to each other, image by image, day after day. The album was the device. The photographs were the memory. The notebook is something Sparks invented because it worked better as a narrative frame, which makes something quiet and strange about the film itself. The montage of Allie and Noah through the years, images of them together across decades, evidence of a long shared life, those are the real personal photographs of Gina Rowlands and her late husband John Cassavetes. Director Nick Cassavetes used his own parents' pictures to build the visual history of a fictional marriage. James Garner's face was digitally placed over John's in every one. So, the title object, the device the whole film is named for, didn't exist in the true story. What existed in the true story was an album of photographs, and those photographs are in the film. Cassavetes put them there quietly, without announcing them, inside a story his mother was telling with her face. The title of the most famous romance of its decade is named after something the original couple never had. What they actually had is in the film. It's just not what anyone's looking for. Number 7. Her shoes dissolved in the rain. Everything about the rain kiss looks designed. The lighting, the downpour, the way the dress moves. It looks like someone spent months planning exactly how it would feel. Much of McAdams's wardrobe wasn't reproduction. It was authentic vintage clothing from the 1940s. Rented, real, 60 years old. Beautiful to look at. Not built for a South Carolina rainstorm. McAdams later recalled that so much of what she wore was falling apart throughout the shoot. The shoes were particularly catastrophic. By the time they were deep into filming the rain scene, they had physically disintegrated in the water. Watch the scene, and you'll notice she's barefoot. That wasn't a wardrobe choice. The 1940s footwear didn't survive the shoot. The scene was filmed over multiple days, repeatedly soaked. McAdams described wanting nothing more than to finish and go inside. It was cold. Out of that cold, out of that collapsing wardrobe, they produced the image that won MTV's Best Kiss in 2005 and has been recreated in approximately 10,000 wedding photos. The most planned-looking moment in the film is the one that was falling apart in real time. Number 6. Gosling hated the line. Everyone loves. In a 2022 interview, Gosling described his approach to acting as Marie Kondo style, cutting anything that doesn't spark joy. If a line doesn't feel right in the moment, he'd rather lose it. "If you're a bird, I'm a bird," did not spark joy. He said the line. It didn't feel like anything. He assumed it would land nowhere. It went on to be printed on merchandise, quoted at weddings, and become one of the most recognized phrases from any romantic film of the 2000s. Then there's, "What do you want? What do you want?" The line at the film's climax, Noah demanding Allie make a choice. That one Gosling improvised entirely. It wasn't in Jeremy Levin's script. Cassavetes said in the same VH1 interview, where he described the on-set feud that Gosling just founded in the moment. He knew it immediately, and so did Cassavetes. So the line Gosling thought was going nowhere is now permanent. The line nobody wrote, that came out of the moment and the scene and wherever Gosling's head was that afternoon. That's the one the whole film turns on. He was right about neither of them. Number 5, the movie was not what anyone was talking about. Then Facebook happened. June 25th, 2004. The loudest conversation that weekend was about Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, which opened the same day and became the highest-grossing documentary in Hollywood history, earning $23.9 million in its first few days. The Notebook made $13.5 million, less than half its $29 million budget, to reviews that range from mixed to dismissive. Rotten Tomatoes, 54%. One critic called the script a sticky sweet swamp. White Chicks and Dodgeball were both beating it. The studio was not celebrating. Cassavetes recalled it as considered really bad. No business, no good reviews. And then something happened that nobody in 2004 had a framework for. Cassavetes later described sitting at home when someone told him his movie was #1 on Facebook. His response, "What's Facebook?" Facebook had launched in February 2004, 4 months before The Notebook opened. It was barely past the college dorm phase. And organically, without a campaign or a strategy, The Notebook became the thing people kept passing to each other on this new platform. Cassavetes described it as similar to Titanic. Never a big single week, just steady and relentless, going forever. The film finished at $115.6 million worldwide and sold over 11 million DVD copies by February 2010. It remains the highest-grossing Nicholas Sparks adaptation ever made, a movie that lost its opening weekend to a political documentary and 2 comedies became a permanent fixture of popular culture because a 4-month-old social network decided it was the one. Number 4. The director cast his own mother. When Nick Cassavetes needed someone to play the older Allie, a woman with Alzheimer's in a nursing home, still capable of brief moments of recognition, he didn't hold a search. He called his mother. Gina Rowlands, 2-time Oscar nominee, took the role. To prepare, she drew on something she'd lived through. Her own mother had Alzheimer's. She told O Magazine in 2004 that if Nick hadn't been directing, she wouldn't have done it. It was just too hard to revisit. She performed the role. The film became a classic. Years passed. In June 2024, on the film's 20th anniversary, Nick Cassavetes revealed to Entertainment Weekly that his mother had been living with Alzheimer's for the past 5 years. His exact words, "We lived it, she acted it, and now it's on us. Gina Rowlands watched her mother's memory fade to this condition. She studied it in order to perform it. Her son made a film about it using her face, and the condition she spent months learning to portray in order to do it honestly found her 20 years later. 3 generations. The grandmother had it. The mother played it. The mother now has it. And the film, which is about a man who refuses to stop telling a woman her own story so she doesn't lose it. That was never just a love story. Number 3, 4 directors said no. The one who made it read the script to turn it down. New Line Cinema acquired the rights to The Notebook in 1996 and then spent 7 years trying to find someone willing to direct it. Steven Spielberg read the script in 1998 and wanted to make it with Tom Cruise. Scheduling conflicts ended that before it started. Jim Sheridan developed it for nearly 2 years and walked away in October 2000. Martin Campbell entered negotiations in March 2001 and left. M. Night Shyamalan was approached and passed. Then Nick Cassavetes read it. He read it specifically so he could, as he put it, speak intelligently about it when he turned it down. He did not turn it down. His father was John Cassavetes, filmmaker, actor, the founding voice of American independent cinema, who made 10 films with Gina Rowlands before his passing in 1989 at 59. Nick grew up inside that marriage. When he read The Notebook, a story about a man who refuses to let a woman's memory go long after the world has moved on, it wasn't a job offer. It was something personal. Spielberg passed, Cruise passed, 4 directors said no. The one who said yes had a reason none of them had, and you can feel that reason in every decision the film makes. Number 2, Gina Rowlands said she couldn't have done this role for anyone else. There's a detail in the making of The Notebook that doesn't get enough attention. Gina Rowlands told O Magazine in 2004 that if her son hadn't been directing, she wouldn't have taken the role. It was too hard. She'd watched her own mother lose herself to Alzheimer's. She didn't want to go back there for a stranger's film. She went back for her son. Producer Mark Johnson said he'd never heard a director call action mom before. She treated Nick exactly like her director. He was aware every moment that she was his mother, and because it was her son asking, because it was a private thing between them disguised as a film production, she brought her own grief to the part. Not research, not empathy. The actual thing. She won the Golden Satellite Award for Best Supporting Actress. The film became what it became. And 20 years later, her son confirmed publicly that she was living with Alzheimer's herself, that what she had studied and performed had found her. She prepared for this role by watching her mother lose her memory. The condition she studied and performed in order to honor it returned to her 20 years later. 3 generations, the grandmother had it, the mother played it, the mother now has it. And the film, which is about a man who refuses to stop telling a woman her own story so she doesn't lose herself. That was never just a movie premise. Number 1, the whole film is a letter. A son wrote to his mother. Let's put the whole thing together, because what you're looking at, once you see it, is something the film never tells you directly. Nick Cassavetes read The Notebook to say no. A story about a man holding a woman's memory in place by telling her their story every day. He said yes because it wasn't a job offer. It was personal. His father was John Cassavetes, filmmaker, actor, the founding voice of American independent cinema, who passed in 1989 at 59. His mother is Gina Rowlands. He grew up inside their marriage, inside 10 films they made together, inside a creative partnership that was also the center of his entire childhood. When he made The Notebook, he cast his mother as the woman with Alzheimer's. He put his parents' private photographs inside the montage of the fictional couple's life together, with James Garner's face placed over his late father's face in every one. He made a film about refusing to let a woman's memory go, and then, 20 years later, his mother's memory began to go. The real couple who inspired Nicholas Sparks used a photo album, not a notebook. The title object doesn't exist in the true story, but the photographs do. Cassavetes brought those back, his photographs, his family, and put them inside the fiction without announcing them. You can watch this film a dozen times and never know whose faces you're looking at in that montage. The grandfather walked his wife through pictures of their life so she wouldn't lose it. Nick Cassavetes made a film about a man who does exactly that. using pictures of his own parents' life, with his mother's real face in the frame. He just changed the names. And there you have it, 15 facts about the Notebook that change how you see it. Which one got you? Tell us in the comments. Like and subscribe for more deep dives every weekday. We'll see you next time. And until then, if you're a bird, we're a bird.